Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton, where in our open and welcoming community, we live our message of hope, love, justice, and joy. Whether you're here with us in Channing or joining us on Zoom, it's great to be together on this wonderful and beautiful, beautiful day. We extend a special welcome to our visitors. We're so happy that you've joined us. And we'd invite you to stop by our newcomer table after the worship service so that we can learn more about what brings you to UU Princeton and get you any information that you'd like about our congregation. A few announcements. Next Sunday is our annual flower celebration worship service. Please bring a flower with you to worship to randomly exchange during the service. And after the service, we have our annual meeting of members of the congregation. Please stay after if you're a member to help us select some new leaders and to pass a budget. For more information on that draft budget and the slate of potential elected leaders, please check your email, or you can head over to Foz Theater after worship today. We'll have a Q&A discussion mostly about the budget, or you can log in on Tuesday night and we'll have that same presentation on Zoom. We'll send an email out with that Zoom link on Tuesday. And then after the annual meeting, we will hope everybody will stay for our annual spring picnic. Hopefully the weather will be nice. We'll be outside enjoying one another's company. It's always a great way to end our church year together. Also, the Racial Justice Ministries Indigenous Peoples Concerns Group invites you to join them at the Nanticoke Lenni Lenape Powwow on Saturday, June 10th. We are organizing carpools from UU Princeton. All ages are welcome. The powwow features Native American drumming, dancing, and singing, and you can sign up by going to uuprinceton.org, clicking on the Sign Up Genius tab, and then selecting this event. And lastly, happy almost Pride Month. Princeton Pride is coming soon. On June 17th, the third annual parade will be marching down Witherspoon Street and gathering for a party and a fair next to the Princeton YWCA. All are welcome to walk with our congregation's Rainbow Ministry Group and representing UU Princeton in our pride and advocacy for the LGBTQIA community. You can join up with UU Princeton marchers at 10:30 that Saturday morning in the municipal driveway closest to the church, or just stop by the Rainbow Ministry booth at the Pride Fair on Paul Robeson Place between 11 and 4. And again, that's June 17th is when all that stuff is happening. And now with mind and heart, may we celebrate and praise the one light that offers each sunbeam, the one breath that fills each body, the one fire that lights each spark, and the one sea to which all waters flow. Come, let us worship together.
Those who have long enjoyed such privileges as we enjoy forget in time that men have died to win them. Franklin D. Roosevelt.
This is If There Is to Be Peace. It's by Lao Tse, who was the founder of Taoism. It's written responsively, but let's just read it in unison together. Well, I'll just read all the lines together. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. May it be so, and amen.
When I look at my life, I sometimes wonder if it's possible that I'm in heaven and I just don't realize it. But then there is war. It's in the news today, just as it has been since news has existed. If there is heaven on earth, then hell surely exists here too. My cousin joined the army after 9/11 and eventually did several deployments in Afghanistan. He has never volunteered much about his time in service or his time in combat, but he has revealed in small bits and pieces that it was physically, psychologically, and emotionally torturous for him, and in some profoundly traumatic. I can understand his silence. I imagine he has experienced the highest peaks and lowest troughs of feeling that existence has to offer any human being. Feeling so intensely stunning and petrifying, so overwhelmingly cowing that I pray to never know them personally. It's rare that I ever reread a book, yet one book I've returned to time and time again is All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Maria Remarque. Remarque was himself a World War I veteran, wounded veteran. Billed as the greatest war novel of all time, just this last year, Netflix came out with a commendable film version that I can recommend. But I personally prefer the novel because of its first-person narration, which grants the reader a more personal relationship with the main character, Paul, a 20-year-old German World War I soldier. I won't recap the whole story. Go home, please reread it again. But Paul whisks the reader through the full war experience, the early naivety of a young recruit, the blanching fear of battles, the indescribable camaraderie and loss, the inescapable softening and hardening of the heart, the evolution of wisdom beyond one's years. Sometimes I'll stop to read just the last 2 pages of this book, and even that causes tears to well up in my eyes. Now, when I read the entire book and I get to those same last pages, I will literally sob into my pillow for several minutes. That's how strongly it is. In high school, All Quiet on the Western Front was one of the first reading materials from which I cobbled together a rudimentary worldview and a personal philosophy. It evoked all of the right questions for a young mind ready to sample some of the ugly facets of humanity. The book still speaks to me today, reminding me of the youthful innocence that war feeds upon, reminding me that war, like a tornado, is an unfathomably complex convergence of overgrown passions, powers, and energies, sucking people in from all distances and directions, despite a universal preference for peace. Reminding me how easily human beings can, when pressured, transform into human beasts, war horses, killer bees, obedient sheep, herded cattle. I'd like to end my talk here with the very last short paragraphs of this great book. Battle weary and wizened, Paul has survived many years of brutal combat and has suffered the loss of his closest friends. Now he sits in a garden on a short leave to recover from an injury. Talk of an armistice is in the air, and Paul finally allows himself to believe that the nightmare will be over soon. He describes the feelings that flood over him as the greed of life, love of home, yearning for the blood, intoxication of deliverance. So it goes. Here the trees show gay and golden. The berries of the rowan stand red among the leaves. Country roads run white out to the skyline, and the canteens hum like beehives with rumors of peace. I stand up. I am very quiet. Let the months and years come. They can take nothing from me. They can take nothing more. I am so alone and so without hope that I can confront them without fear. The life that has borne me through these years is still in my hands and my eyes. Whether I have subdued it, I know not. But so long as it is there, it will seek its own way out, heedless of the will that is within me. He fell in October 1918 on a day that was so quiet and still on the whole front that the Army report confined itself to a single sentence, all quiet on the Western Front. He had fallen forward and lay on the earth as though sleeping. Turning him over, one saw that he could not have suffered long. His face had an expression of calm, as though almost glad the end had come.
There was once two groups of people living under one sun on a big field separated by a small stream. They lived peacefully for as long as anyone could remember, sharing crops and joining in each other's celebrations from time to time. Their friendships easily crossed the stream. Sometimes their marriages did as well. And while they remained distinct tribes, they lived together mostly in harmony. One day, however, a disagreement arose between the two groups. The stream had started to run drier than usual, and both groups worried about their crops. They raced one another to divert the stream and provide their side with more irrigation, and as they did so, they started arguing about other things as well. They started to not trust each other and to assume the worst in one another, and before long, each side worried about an attack by the other side. Each side amassed armies to ward off such an imagined attack and, if needed, to go to war. Part of that involved each side building a big stone wall along their border just next to the stream. For weeks and weeks, each side stacked huge stones along the stream bank to prevent the other side from crossing whenever they wanted to onto their land. Before long, the walls were both so high that they couldn't see each other at all. No sharing of life and celebrations of food and friendships, stream and field. Each side was walled off, able to only think about building their walls higher and higher. They could no longer see their neighbors, only themselves, and their worlds shrunk and became more and more fearful. Both sides surely thought that they were right and their actions were just and prudent, and both sides would have been served by those called to protect their land and their people against the other side. These would be service members, the service members we would honor this weekend on Memorial Day. Those who, as the late Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, are the light at the tip of the candle when it comes to having a better understanding of war and conflict. Han wasn't only writing about service members, he wrote about people touched by war in general, as he was by the Vietnam War, which occurred in his homeland. His opposition to that war would lead to him being exiled. But he believed that he and others, service members and civilians, by being the light at the tip of the candle, could shine and illuminate the truths of war that might help lead the world to peace. Choosing peace is not, in history, common. A common creation narrative is a motif in which things were once peaceful and abundant, but through human agency, they become divisive and violent. War is chosen, and once chosen, peace becomes very difficult to choose again. The exact sins of the people change in the stories and traditions, but that sense of lost paradise repeats and repeats. These myths and parables and stories tend to try and explain why humans are such a warring people. For one thing we share in common across culture and time, land and location, huge modern nation and small agrarian tribe, and everything in between is an undeniable history of war and battle. We can choose peace, but in history writ large and small, modern and ancient, religious and secular, in all governances, we choose war again and again. 20 years ago, the writer Christopher Hedges estimated that in the last 3,400 years, only 268 of them have been peaceful. And there certainly hasn't been much global peace in the last 20 years or so since the Times published that statistic. This perspective is really important on this holiday weekend when we honor those service members who died in our nation's wars, that war is not the exception, it is the norm. And this makes peace building the more difficult work. It's why the great prophets and great leaders in diverse traditions continually urge us to drop our weapons and study war no more. And that is actually hopeful. They're saying that yes, war is a choice that we make, but peace is nevertheless what they teach and model and believe in. And there are always prophets of peace trying to address something they knew and we know and wish we didn't. Thich Nhat Hanh is reminding us that the people who have perhaps the most to teach us are those directly impacted by war, the service members who fought and the civilians swept up in it. And the more distance that we keep from those service members, the less embracing we are of what they have to share and teach, the further we ourselves will be from realizing a more enduringly peaceful world. Han is telling us, even as we advocate for peace, to listen and learn from those who've experienced what we are resisting. Centering ourselves in the communal, shared civic rituals of Memorial Day can help as well. On Thursday, as part of that weekend, service members blanketed Arlington National Cemetery and placed a single flag in the ground before the headstone of those laid to rest there. They placed 260,000 flags by headstones in a ritual named Flags In, as in flags in the ground. Each headstone represents an individual with their own story. Each one contains the body of someone who lived and loved, who dreamed and struggled, and who sacrificed. These modern service members are replicating an ancient ritual, one in which the living honor the burial sites of the dead, particularly of those who've died in battle. It's difficult to trace the beginnings of this. One of the reasons that the beginning of our modern Memorial Day observance is contested is because the custom of honoring the dead is so ancient. There's disagreement about where to start the story of our modern Memorial Day, for there are stories in antiquity of survivors placing flowers, food, charms, and gifts on the graves of those who died in defense of their people. There are ancient markers of these customs created in grief and gratitude and with the intent to honor and remember, that have nothing to do with decree or national holiday, but have everything to do with grief, honor, and a need to remember. Ritual shared builds upon this response to war so that we can come together and build stronger community. Those who disagree about this or that can agree that remembering the lost, honoring their lives, and being compassionate toward the grieving strengthens human community and kindness. Ritual is its own kind of peace building in this way. It makes us better people, and it widens the common ground of respect and civility. That broader unifying sense comes through those rituals like Flags In and parades and songs and marches, gatherings that bring people together to glimpse something more holy and whole. And when we start engagement from a sense of greater unity and respect, we can move into areas of disagreement and discussion in ways that don't automatically set two sides against each other in some sort of winner-take-all struggle. We can avoid replicating the patterns of war as we wrestle with the timeless reality of war. We can be more peaceful as we build peace. For Thich Nhat Hanh, one who had to leave his country because of his opposition to war, this all starts within. Peace in the world starts with peace within, for it is the same peace, the same gift, the same demand, and the same calling. That which we wish to be practiced between nations must be practiced in our hearts. There's no violent path to lasting peace. Peace is not coercive. It's a quality to be embraced and lived and modeled. And this adds so much to life. As Thich Nhat Hanh writes, the most important practice for preventing war is to stay in touch with what is refreshing, healing, and joyful inside and all around us. If we practice walking mindfully, being in touch with the earth, the air, the trees, and ourselves, we can heal ourselves, and our entire society will also be healed. If the whole nation would practice watering seeds of joy and peace, and not just seeds of anger and violence, the elements of war in all of us will be transformed. He's saying that our daily lives create our shared reality. And he continues, we must prepare ourselves, whether we have 1 minute, 10 years, or 1,000 years. If you have 1 minute, use that minute to breathe in and out and calmly plant the seeds of peace and understanding in yourself. If you have 10 years, please use the 10 years to prevent the next war. If you have 1,000 years, please use that time to prevent the destruction of the planet. And he concludes, transformation is possible, but it takes time. There are already seeds of peace in those we call hawks, but they need us to water their seeds of peace and understanding, or else their seeds of anger and aggression will continue to dominate. Do not feel discouraged. Just by your way of looking at things and doing things, you influence others. Han's prophetic call here is one of relentless compassion and disciplined understanding. It demands this inner growth that becomes a broader blessing. It insists that minute after minute and year after year, we grow in understanding and compassion, and that by doing so, the world will become a better place. And he says this is all joyful and refreshing and healing. It's not angry or wounding or othering. It's patient and healing and connecting. And it's a demanding call. It's so much easier to just shout about how someone else should be peaceful, or post something, or attack or generalize about people with whom we disagree. But that's cheap and weak activism. It asks for no growth, builds no bridges, and places the self at the center of the movement, and none of that works. We are to see the dove in the hawks and live in ways that nurture that wholeness. And we are to become clearer about, we who are more dovish people, about who we really are. We have to name and tame the hawks within us. And from this place of honesty and humility, we can forge a common ground, engaging everyone we can, of like and different mind, in building more opportunities for peace in the world, the nation, the cities, between neighbors, in the home, and in our hearts. It will help to organize with people of like mind and heart, but it will help more to talk with people with whom we are not in obvious agreement, to find common ground there, to find shared values there, to build a movement of, if not complete peace, greater peace with people who see things differently than us. For greater peace will not be found in the comforts of our confines, only will it be found in the common square, where we live our faith respectfully, peacefully, and lovingly with and among diverse groups of people. The call of peace is the call for engagement with the wider world, to come in from the margins, as former president of the UUA, Bill Sinkford, once described it, to be right in the middle of the conversation, living, working, dreaming, and growing with people of like and diverse mind. May that be our trajectory as we try to build a world of greater peace than has ever been known, one worthy of the sacrifices of the lost, one worthy of the dreams of our children. May we build that peace that tears down the walls of stone built by scarcity and suspicion, and may those stones then become shelter and pathways and temples of common beauty. And may we honor the dead this weekend for their commitments, for how they lived, and for the sadness of their deaths. May we remember that there's a loved one beneath every tombstone. May we honor and celebrate those lives. May their memories be blessed. May their loved ones be surrounded by compassion and held in care. May they be embraced in their grief and their pain be soothed. And may we together, with hope as our guide and peace as our goal, and in ever-widening company, practice peace in the heart and among one another, that it might spread enduringly in the world. May it be so, and amen. All right, we're gonna have to work that one in rotation a little bit more. Sometimes when you have trouble with hymns, you stay away from them. That's not what we do. We go right at them again. We're gonna keep singing that one. For our benediction, go forth grateful for the moments before you, the breath within you, the people among you, and the Spirit guiding you toward lives of greater love and kindness. And go forth knowing that you are held always and always with everyone else by that great love of no beginning and never ending. Go in peace, and amen.